Hello, thanks for joining us. Welcome to this edition of News 2. I'm Sandra Gomansing. In just a few short years, the Virgin Islands will be up to speed with the mainland in terms of being able to use GPS while driving. A pilot project is underway in 3 communities, which is attempting to standardize an addressing system for the territory's roads. Who's sitting in the driver's seat for this project? News 2's Erica Bivens explains.
No-name streets will hopefully be a thing of the past in the Virgin Islands, thanks to the Office of the Lieutenant Governor in partnership with the University of the Virgin Islands Eastern Caribbean Center.
And I said to my staff, why are we not into the same system like the mainland? So we started the GIS system.
The first phase was creating the master plan and was funded by a $66,000 grant from the Department of the Interior, money that was spent locally by partnering with UVI. That takes us to phase 2, which is developing
pilot areas, which we are doing on all 3 islands. And that would allow us to test the whole process from beginning to end, including involving the communities, generating street names, and then implementing the street names, which is planting signs in the ground, and start giving those latitude and longitudes and geospatial information.
3 communities have been selected for the pilot project, but their names aren't being disclosed because they haven't been notified just yet. But the project is more than just being able to navigate our streets. It's also about public safety, and it will tremendously help out our first responders.
Which is the police, fire in the event of emergency. That's why it's very important.
Project leaders estimate full implementation for the territory should take 3 to 5 years. But their biggest challenge
is getting us to that national standard, which is the 3 or 4 digit address with the street name. Once we do that, we'll be able to utilize GPS so we could get that involved in tourism, getting it to the restaurants. We could start doing directional stuff through Yahoo Maps, getting from point A to point B.
Although it may sound simple, field work will be a big part of the project.
Because we have to go from beginning to end of every street, every steps, every gata, strata, you name it, we have to do it. So everywhere there's a lane or road or a run, we have to be there.
The team is still accumulating street names for all 3 islands, so if you'd like to help, you can visit the Lieutenant Governor's website and submit your information. For News 2, I'm Erica Bivens.
The street names are recommendations that will eventually be sent to the legislature, who is responsible for giving the okay. In the continuing election lawsuit, the Attorney General's office filed another motion Friday. This one is a motion to dismiss the case altogether. The AG represents the defendants, the election board chairs for each district, joint boards, and supervisor of elections. However, the plaintiffs in the case, 5 former candidates, filed a motion to reconsider the case last Friday. That document is still pending a response from District Judge Raymond Finch. The plaintiffs have argued several local and federal laws were broken in the 2012 elections, but the AG maintains it's not a case for district court. A funeral for the late Michael Greer, better known as Joe Mike for the People, took place Friday morning. Greer was a taxi driver on St. Thomas who was shot and killed outside his home in St. Thomas last month. Friday's funeral drew a large crowd of family, friends, and other taxi drivers who paid their respects. Following the funeral, a procession took place with safaris joining in, following many of the traditional taxi routes before heading to the Western Cemetery, where Greer was laid to rest.
So this morning we're very sad to see that our dearly brother is leaving us, and he was so much a good man to a part of St. Thomas Taxi Association and VI Taxi also.
Taxi drivers from St. Thomas Association feeling the pain this morning, and from last night after visiting the body in the casket, this is a real sad day for all of us. It is all right when somebody could get in an accident and die, somebody sick and die, but this we're not planning for. When a taxi driver going home now, they have to be very careful.
News 2 will keep you updated as the investigation continues. The territory is just short of being declared tsunami ready, and that's according to Vitema officials, who say there are just a couple more requirements needed to meet the National Weather Service's standards, and then the VI will be a tsunami ready community. News 2's Erica Parsons has more.
There are certain guidelines and criteria that a community have to meet in order to get the certification to become Tsunami Ready. The U.S. Virgin Islands, about 90%.
Vitema has completed most of the requirements necessary to be declared a tsunami-ready community by the National Weather Service's standards.
One is the installation of the tsunami signs throughout the territory. That's a criteria. We have completed the Tsunami Annex that was signed by the Governor of the Virgin Islands in February.
That's the Tsunami Incident Annex, which is the territory's emergency operations plan. Officials also have the 911 call center in place. Director Lewis has made the required site visit to the National Weather Service, and
I had put in a grant for $14,000 to help us print those maps.
Funding has also been approved to print inundation maps that show where the water will head if a tsunami hits, and signs that show the evacuation routes will soon be installed.
I'm pleased to report that WAPR have agreed to assist us with installation of the signs.
But there are a few things left to do for the VI to be ready.
The final stage is the educational portion where we embark on our educational quest to the different communities, educational facilities and so forth, and just talk to the general public about being tsunami ready.
Experts say it's not likely you'll have time to prepare should a tsunami hit that's caused by a nearby earthquake, but if you can, head for higher ground.
One of the things that we're stressing to the community, and what's going to be a part of the educational process, is to basically take a look at your surroundings. Currently where you reside right now, try to locate the highest point around where you live.
Experts say if you are at the beach or near the ocean and feel the ground shake, move immediately to higher ground. Tsunamis generated farther away can give people enough time to move, but you won't have that luxury with a locally generated tsunami. The best thing to do is follow the evacuation signs and head to higher ground. Erica Parsons, News 2.
Vitema officials say the governor has approved and signed a contract to manufacture at least 10 more tsunami sirens that will be installed around the territory. While the troop store at the National Guard's Armory on St. Croix will be closing its doors on Saturday, January 19th, officials say services at the Army and Air Force Exchange Troop Store will be discontinued so it can be restructured and remodeled in the coming months. The store serves all military members and their families, and officials are asking the community's patience. They say it will be bigger and better than before. Once it's complete, the St. Thomas Post Exchange will operate as normal. Well, the D.C. Metro Area Virgin Islands Association will hold its second inaugural ball to honor the re-election of President Barack Obama and Vice President Joe Biden. The event takes place this weekend in Alexandria, Virginia. Confirmed speakers include Paul Monteiro, Obama's Associate Director of Public Engagement, VI Delegate to Congress Donna Christensen, and several other members of the newly formed VI 30 legislature. News 2 will have highlights from that event. Meanwhile, members of the VI National Guard also will be making their way to the Washington, D.C. for President's inauguration. The VING will provide special assistance to the District of Columbia National Guard, which is supporting several law enforcement agencies during the 2013 presidential inauguration. Meanwhile, preparations underway on a wall just outside the Multi-Agency Communications Center. The Secret Service has a framed headline that, like this, a reminder of the high stakes inside the MAAC. Seats for 100, big monitors plugged into every law enforcement camera in the city, a constant stream of intelligence. In 2009, the FBI was particularly concerned about white supremacists. The web was filled with hate speech about the incoming African-American president, but intel officers are hearing less of that this year. 4 years ago, an estimated 20,000 law enforcement officers patrolled on land, air, and water, and just as many are likely to deploy this year, but with a newfound emphasis on ensuring that people can get in to celebrate American democracy. They will also close the 3rd Street Tunnel and deploy guides, hoping to keep thousands of people from getting stuck and missing the swearing-in. The presidential inauguration of our elected president's second term again will be held on Monday, January 21st in Washington, D.C., and CBS TV2 will be airing it live from 11 a.m. to 5 p.m. The inauguration swearing-in ceremony, inaugural address, and inauguration parade will all be covered. The theme for the 2013 inauguration is Faith in America's Future, commemorating the United States' perseverance and unity, and marking the 150th anniversary of the Emancipation Proclamation. Once again, the presidential inauguration will be aired live Monday on CBS TV2 from 11 a.m. to 5 p.m. U.S. officials are still trying to get a handle on what's happening on the ground in Algeria. Hostage takers who are linked to al-Qaeda claim to be holding more Americans and want to negotiate. Tara Mergener is in Washington with the latest.
These former hostages say they're glad to have made it out of the Algerian gas plant where they worked alive.
We were lucky that we are still alive and everything is good.
This hostage described being held in a room with 200 others, and when the Algerian army launched its rescue mission, he escaped out a back door. Planes have landed near the desert plant to evacuate U.S. survivors and other foreign nationals to hospitals in Europe. But there are hostages still inside, anywhere from 18 to 60 people, from the U.S., Japan, Norway, and Britain.
This is a large and complex site, and they are still pursuing terrorists and possibly some of the hostages in other areas of the site.
An al-Qaeda-linked terrorist group called the Masked Brigade says it stormed the compound Wednesday in retaliation for French airstrikes against militant fighters in neighboring Mali. There are reports the group wants to negotiate a swap, 2 Americans for 2 terror suspects in U.S. custody. U.S. officials are working to determine the fate of the U.S. citizens involved. They estimate there are about 7 or 8 of them. And U.S. Defense Secretary Leon Panetta has issued a warning.
Terrorists should be on notice. They will find no sanctuary.
The Obama administration says it's in contact with Algerian authorities, but says it's been difficult to get accurate information. Tara Mergener for CBS News, the State Department.
And keeping our eye on the economy, stocks opened a little change despite some better than expected earning news. General Electric's income rose 8% in the fourth quarter due to growth in emerging markets, which was better than analysts expected. Toyota settled the first of hundreds of potential wrongful death lawsuits. The lawsuits were based on claims that sudden, unintended acceleration of Toyota vehicles caused deaths and injuries. This is New York Stock Exchange, the Scotiabank Stock Market Watch. The Dow up 53, NASDAQ down 1, S&P up 5. Coming up on News 2, Martin Luther King Day is recognized on Monday, where you can turn to for a history lesson and to remember the legacy of Dr. Martin Luther King. Details all coming up next. Monday celebrates 24 years that the Central Labor Council's Civil Rights Committee will march in honor of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. The committee plans to rally hundreds from various schools and organizations to take part in the annual march and rally on Monday to honor both Martin Luther King Jr. and President Barack Obama's inauguration. News 2's Janisha John brings us the story.
For the past 24 years, the memory of Martin Luther King Jr. has been honored with a march hosted by the Central Labor Council's Civil Rights Committee, an honor that has brought together hundreds from schools and organizations to celebrate a man that fought for civil rights.
The Civil Rights Committee of Martin Luther been celebrating that for the last 24 years. Our objective is to continue to celebrate the legacy of Martin Luther King. We all know that he fought for equal right and justice for everyone. He also lost his life doing that.
Though Martin Luther King died for the rights of so many, his legacy is one that CLC says will never die, as the committee plans to host their annual march this coming Monday in his honor.
If 1, 2, 3, 4 people have to march, we will.
We're gonna march on from Cloud Marco straight to General Bud Hope Park and have a rally and a program, which we have a great lineup and setup of musicians, singers, dancers, different entertainers in reference to this momentous time. We're hoping that the community comes out and just recognize this wonderful day and just have the passion that we all share in memory of Martin Luther King.
Not only will Martin Luther King be honored, but the second inauguration of the first black president, Barack Obama, will also be recognized that day.
Martin Luther predicted that in 40 years' time there will be a black president. And as he said, he had a dream that clearly came true.
this is definitely an event for all the children and just everyone to don't forget what Martin Luther King stood for.
And registration and lineup will begin at 9 a.m. at the Cloudalmocker Elementary School. The march starts at 10 a.m. For more information on how you can join, you can visit MLK March and Rally on Facebook, or you can call 277-7848 or 332-2546. Again, Martin Luther King Day will be observed on Monday, and there are a few events taking place in honor of this holiday. St. Croix will be holding its 28th annual Martin Luther King Fort to Fort Memorial Run at 6 a.m. on Sunday, starting from Fort Christiansburg and ending on Mahogany Road. UVI St. Thomas Campus's student, meanwhile, Government Association, they will be holding a screening of Martin Luther King Jr.'s speech. And then on Monday in UVI's Dining Pavilion, that's from 8 a.m. to 9 p.m. Also, several businesses and government entities will be closed, which include all banks, Innovative, and the BMV. He was the most important voice of the American civil rights movement, which worked for equal rights for all. Now, on August 28, 1963, Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. delivered that famous I Have a Dream speech at the Lincoln Memorial in Washington, D.C. We will share some of the excerpts of the historic speech and more. Be sure to tune in to News 2 on Martin Luther King Day. That's Monday, January 21st at 7 p.m. and 12 a.m. as we recognize the legacy of Dr. King right here on CBS TV2. Remember, you can follow us on Twitter, YouTube, and Facebook. Citizens from across the country will be joining the Obama family on Saturday, January 19th, in a tradition they started in 2009 called the National Day of Service, where people are encouraged to do community service. Locals can take part by helping out the Environmental Association of St. Thomas and St. John and the VI Conservation Society on January 19th from 9 a.m. at Megan's Bay. Participants will help transport aluminum cans to the recycling center in Sub-Base. Proceeds from the cans will go towards funds for community-wide recycling. Be sure to stick around. Your News 2 AccuWeather forecast is coming up next.